Hey, I'm Tom Llewellyn with Civil Governance, and this is recipes for everything. Now, I know a lot of times you think, hey, let's cook something, and we're going to cook though. We're not necessarily going to cook food. We're going to use food as examples, but we're going to talk about recipes for everything. I mean, your to-do list is a recipe, right? How do I get through the day with a smile? I get all those damn things off the list, and I'm grinning, and it feels good. Maybe it tastes good too. But how about those equations? You remember famous E equals MC squared? Guess what? It's a recipe for energy and mass. Now, most of us glaze over when we see those, but there are things that are important we need to know. And one of those, especially when you consider, the news we watch, they give us these little flits on productivity, GDP, unemployment, the interest rate, They don't really give us any context on what the hell they mean, right? And it's important, right? You make decisions based on how things are going. And if somebody says, ooh, that number says you should feel bad, you tend to feel bad, even though you don't know why. Probably not a good thing, right? So we're going to do a recipe for GDP. Now understand, this is recipes for economics. Economics is considered the dismal science. For a great reason, right? I think they should call it the sleeping science. The reason I have the shirt on is every economist that gives a speech should have coffee. I'm also wearing it because my daughter's an artist. She made the shirt. That may be more important than the, give your audience some coffee. But literally, if you had an economist come and you had 100 people in the audience, they were going to speak out about an economic paper they've written, you'd be able to tell who were economists in the audience by who was still awake after 5 minutes, right? The economists are like all, everybody else is nodding off. Nobody served them coffee. So they're out of the game, right? It's pretty dull. It's like algebra. How many of you liked your algebra class? There was one guy over in the back corner. He loved it. Well, he's an economist, right? Or maybe he's a physicist, right? But here's the deal. So they love equations. So I'm going to give you the reason why everybody goes to sleep. This is GDP. Make any sense? Who makes this stuff up, right? It's like, well, GDP, gross domestic product. That in itself, what does that mean? So everything in the United States. We have all kinds of interest outside the United States. Tons. I mean, lots. Ford has plants. GM has plants. Apple has plants. Warehouses all over the world. All kinds of stuff going on over there where people are buying and selling stuff. It's just not domestic, right? So it's only inside the United States. Now, what are these other ones? C, consumption. I'm going to get into that in a minute. I, investment. G, government. X minus M. I could never figure this one out. They took the first two letters out of words and counted the second, got rid of everything else. Exports minus imports. Now, this is a trade thing. We'll get onto that one sometime later, but this one's pretty important, how to understand it and acknowledge it. So consumption. I would love to get the billions of transactions that we do in the United States every day, whether it's online or in stores or everything, or just going out and buying a piece of broccoli like I did. But I love broccoli because of all these little seeds on it. There's thousands of seeds on this piece of broccoli. Imagine that they're a transaction where you went to the store and you bought something, or your neighbor went to the store and bought something. It's all the things that we buy for our homes, for our daily lives. Those expenditures that count in GDP for consumption. So keep that in mind, literally. I mean, anything you can think of buying, including things that are imported. So Apple, excuse me, thank you, Mr. iPhone. Apple imports their products from China. Still counts. We'll get to how they're subtracted out later. But this broccoli, I'm almost sure, is from Mexico because we live close to the border. So still counts though. So keep that in mind. Now the second one is investment. Now I always thought that investment was all the stocks and stuff people bought. Not the case. So it's plant and equipment. Imagine you build a plant, you fill it with equipment, you buy software and computers and all those things that keep things going. It's all those investments. It's a building that you decide to build and buy. instead of having somebody else and you lease it. It's all those things. It's your house as well, right? So if you buy a house now, and this is the key feature, if you buy a house, it only counts if it's a new house. If you buy a used house, almost all of us buy used houses, right? Doesn't count. You want to buy the White House? Doesn't count. It's a used house, right? Doesn't count. How about the Statue of Liberty? Now, a lot of people may or may not know this, but it's an import. It came from France, right? And it doesn't count anywhere, not as imports and not as anything else, because it was free. Doesn't count, right? But all those other investments, you have stocks and bonds. This is the one that blew me away. No stocks and bonds. I don't know if they're considered old once you issue them, but even newly issued stock in an IPO doesn't count. So all those 401ks don't count. Now, imagine, that's a lot of money, doesn't count. So, the good thing is there's a lot of money in these other kind of investments that you think of traditionally, but they don't count, but they definitely add to our economic production. We'll talk about that at some point as well. So you buy something old, like the Alamo, doesn't count, right? So keep those in mind. Now next, government expenditure, right? We got all kinds of government expenditure. There's a couple that blew me away. Now, the ones we always think of, planes, brand new planes, absolutely. Another one, helicopters, absolutely. New helicopters. Old helicopters, I don't know if you can buy an old helicopter. Well, hold it. If you go to Army Reserve, maybe you can. Doesn't count. How about a tank? Of course, counts. Now, do we import stuff? We probably import a little bit. I don't know what. But it might count, but it's going to be subtracted out in a minute. Here's the weird one. So our paychecks, our private paychecks that we bring home every 2 weeks or so, they don't count. Military paychecks do, which I thought was interesting. So government consumption is not all these military things as well, paychecks that go out, consultants. It also doesn't include, so if this guy is retired and gets Social Security, that doesn't count. That's a transfer payment. So all that's out. So the government spent $7 trillion last year. Again, another subject we'll talk about. Only brought in 5 million, but spent 5 trillion. Did I say 5 million? 5 trillion. $5 trillion on stuff that goes into GDP, which was just short of what was 30 trillion? Anyway, it's a bunch, right? So consider that. Now the important one, because it just comes up all the time. So imagine imports and exports, right? So tomatoes, tomatillos, right? Green and red. So green is plus, red is usually negative, right? You've done your Excel and you get a negative number, it usually comes up red, right? So what does it mean? So exports are things that people pay for, which is nice, and imports are those things we subtract out because we're paying for, right? So what happens? I mean, if it's equal, X minus M is 0, right? What could be worse? However, let's say you import more than you export, and in our case, a lot more, then you wind up with this thing. So ultimately you have 3 and 1, you subtract them and you get this negative number for GDP, to add to GDP. It's kind of like, ew. Now, you're saying to yourself, and everybody is, this comes up in the administration talking about trade and losing jobs and whatever, and we'll talk about this somewhat, but understand as well, although that deficit is pretty big, we do get benefits from it. When we talk about trade, we'll talk about a comparative advantage. It's like people that shop at Walmart, who imports a lot of stuff, save an average of $2,500 a year. It's called the Walmart effect. But that's been going on for, a couple hundred years with, maybe 300, 400 years with trade. You get products cheaper in one place and you sell them your more expensive stuff. So we're not very good at that right now, and that's a problem, but just so you know, that's how things get subtracted out. So that's GDP. Next time, and I'll try to do this maybe once every 2 weeks so I don't get in your hair or my hair very often. So keep this in mind. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do some recipes. We may talk about economics. We may talk about, oh, how about health? You know, that would be fun. What's the recipe for that? Who knows? Anyway, we'll have fun, and I'll see you the next time. Thanks.